What's up, everybody? Time for another game theory, how I did the combo, history of fighting games sort of discussion video, and replying to some comments that I got, which I replied in the comments, but we'll make a video about it because it keeps the channel active. Remember, if you like the videos, like, subscribe, comment, share, support the channel if you can. I appreciate it. Thanks. Super chat, PayPal, whatever, if you want to. It helps. So I got asked something. I had a comment like, oh, so it's just like a media attack. And I got asked, how would you have found that? You just spent hours or something in training mode, just first Gouken, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Right? And first of all, I got to say, you got to remember, and this is people want to act like this. People don't even want to believe that I actually did the combos. A lot of times people want to pretend that it's fake. But you got to remember, for games like Street Fighter 4 and all those Marvel videos, those Marvel 3 videos that people are still trying to outdo to this day, I actually did not own a PS3. When I made any of these videos, I had to borrow it. Okay, I had to borrow a PS3 in the game to even make these. So no, it was not, playing for hours a day or anything like that. I had to borrow it. I just was able to teach myself how video games work, because you got to remember, at Street Fighter 4, okay, I want you to think about this. This is like the history of fucking fighting games, okay? Street Fighter 4 came out, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, maybe like something like 2009 or some shit like that, right? Okay, 2009. Now, if you think about it now, it's 2025. 2009 is a long time ago, right? 16 years ago, right? Is my math correct? Whatever. But 2009, think about where that is in terms of what I've already done in fighting games, in terms of being able to dissect a game, right? 2006 was Guilty Gear Accent Core, right? It's 2025. People use TAS and all this other stuff to even attempt to recreate stuff that I did in 2006 by hand. Okay? And that's me discovering all this stuff in 2006, right? I remember, I think it was last year, we actually went back and looked at old forum stuff. Desk used to be in my old Street Fighter threads and those tech videos when I would explain how video games worked, which Desk has always been whatever to me, whatever. You know what I mean? But obviously at the time, he wasn't even a thing. So I didn't even realize, Desk was in my videos when I'm explaining how video games work, right? Think about what I did for all this stuff. Just create the CVS2 shit, right? I've been doing tech that no one else has ever done in the history of fighting games for a long time. So even though, 2009, you think that's a long time ago, my credentials, so to speak, were already surpassing everyone else by a large margin, which you could already see by 2025. People still try to recreate the old shit I did, right? So I had already taught myself how to look at games. And the thing is, I guess what people, maybe some of the comments don't realize, this stuff works on more than just Gouken. I don't, like I said, if you watch the videos, you can see, right? So Gouken, I said, if you do the jump roundhouse, he staggers in his stomach and then he comes up, right? But for certain characters, depending on the size, so when I was, when I would see these sort of interactions, we're going to compare to Street Fighter 6. So Chun-Li, I do a stand roundhouse. Yeah, she doesn't get hit the same way. So the stand roundhouse hits her like that. But if I do a jump fierce, her reel back animation with her head is longer that way, so it can miss. So because I know it can miss, right, I'm able to then time it as a media attack, right? And then do links that are not normally supposed to be possible. And that's why I was talking about Street Fighter 4 is also another game that, again, I've never been a person that really looks at frame data or anything like that. That's not that frame data did not exist in fighting games. Obviously they do, but it's not how you talked about a video game back in the day, right? And it wasn't really until I feel like Street Fighter 5 is when people really started talking about a lot of frame data, all this kind of stuff. But Street Fighter 4 might be the first instance where Americans really, they started like just posting frame data for people, right? And that kind of ruined some people's brains, I think, that when they would see some of the stuff I've been doing, they're like, well, this doesn't add up to the math-wise, right? So how could this be possible, right? And they don't see that certain bodies are hit different. And then you think the Gouken combo specifically. So we have something like the Duck Fierce, right? Well, we know we can link off of that versus some characters, but some characters, it doesn't work unless you micro walk, right? So if we do this, boom, boom, I did Duck Fierce, now there's something micro walk, boom, then it combos, right? So putting these two different things together, right? And when you look at the way that characters' real animations work, you're like, well, this character gets reeled back this way. This character gets reeled back this way, depending on what the attack I do. And it's not homogenized. It's different for every character, right? Which you can see in my videos, right? And so then I'm like, okay, so we know two things can happen. So I'm going to find a character that is fat enough that I can do a walk forward Bushin combo link. And I'm going to find a character that is just, tall enough that I can get the hard kick to whiff, but they can still reel back into it. And that's how Gouken was a character that I was able to combine those two different things, right? Boom, right? And so maybe when people watch stuff like this back in the day, they didn't see the micro walk. And I think people around the time the Ultra Street Fighter 4 maybe came out, they started seeing, they're like, oh, he's doing a lot of like micro walk stuff. But you got to remember, this was right when Street Fighter 4 came out. I didn't even have Street Fighter 4. I borrowed it and I just like put in the game for a few minutes and it's like, okay, I can see how this game works. Boom. Like I've been dissecting games, again, that's why I say you got to remember, like even, I guess that's a good example. I didn't even own Street Fighter 4. I don't even own a fucking PS3. I've had to teach myself to be able to look at a game and figure out how it's going to work just by looking at it, which again, Accent Core 2006, Japan got that obviously before Americans. And then guess what? Right, what happened right when I got Accent Core? I did all those combos that people to this day still try to recreate, right? Anyway, and some other examples. And so, again, like a DJ might be another example, right? See, when you do a Fierce versus him, he actually gets knocked down like that, right? But because of that. So he's different. Fierce and Roundhouse work different for him. It's not homogenized. There's actually some character knowledge. Now, again, of course, for this like specific link, they changed how his Roundhouse hits. So a lot of those links that I did right when the game came out don't work in the other versions of the game. And this is another example I talk about this. So this is why I was like Street Fighter 6 when I put it in. And I'm like, okay, so let me see if stuff like this works, right? Boom. We can see he has different real animations. And we're like, okay, so for Zangief, right, he's still pretty fat. We could see that this might hit. But Street Fighter 6 is so fucking homogenized that everyone has the same hurt boxes, etc. It's like, look at this. Boom. Oh. But if I jump in, boom, she gets knocked down there. Oh, she just automatically stood up. What? She just automatically got hit by the attack, even though it's not hitting her. Even though it is disingenuous and visually disturbing to your eyes. Chun-Li gets knocked down that she's crouching, and then my Roundhouse stands her up because the game is devoid of creativity. It's all homogenized nonsense. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I've said before, another thing I tried to do as well, if you see. I was like, well, maybe I can do late hitting palm strike move, right? Okay. Can I move back? Oh no, because the game is devoid of creativity. Every combo must work exactly as planned. That's why I was talking about that Dragon Punch shit, right? Ken's Dragon Punch, they gave it a juggle point. You know that you can juggle after it, but seemingly it's basically only for the super. Because if you try to juggle it with it in a way that is a little bit obscure or with a little bit different spacing, all of a sudden the guy he gets sucked down to the ground. It's fucking weird. It's like, oh, okay, you've decided the game for me. Right? And to close this, I got messaged about the Zangief thing, right? And it actually just proves what I talk about. They're like, oh, well, Clayton, they changed it in Street Fighter 4 because it was too hard for Zangief to keep up with Ryu or any character that could hurricane kick backwards, and it became a bad matchup. Well, this actually proves what I'm talking about. So how many different angles does this prove what I'm talking about? A game like Super Turbo. Zangief, if you look at matchup charts, tends to beat Ryu in a game where his hurricane kick is even faster when you go back, right? A game where Zangief is low tier. Right? A game with crazy counter character matchups, Ryu is not a counter character to Zangief, right? In Super Turbo. If anything, you would say that Zangief probably slight advantage versus Ryu. That's probably where most people tend to go, right? It's one of Zangief's better matchups, if anything, right? Street Fighter 4. Let's say what you're saying is true. Zangief loses to hurricane kick backwards. Is that the hurricane kick's fault itself? Or maybe the bigger picture is just Street Fighter 4 not as good as Super Turbo. That's not me saying that Street Fighter 4 is a terrible game or some shit like that. But that's just me saying, in the grand ether of fighting games, Super Turbo is unparalleled. There's so much quotation marks broken shit, so much, nonsense that nature will find a way. Balance in the chaos, right? Jurassic Park. The frog dinosaur became a male somehow and they had sex with each other. I forget what happens in Jurassic Park. Right? The frog developed a penis, even though they're supposed to be males or females, whatever. It's 2025. They can decide what gender they want to be if they want to have dinosaur babies, right? I digress. But, Jesus Christ, what would happen? 2025 Jurassic Park. Maybe the dinosaurs would be non-binary. I don't know. Okay. Where? Bob, you've lost control. Bob, you've lost control. Get back on track, Bob. I'm trying to beat you. Okay. You're losing me, Bob. Okay. What am I talking about? Street Fighter 4. And also, it also goes to point when I'm talking about that it still shows that as games have progressed, they try to pull you in. They try to decide what you can do. They try to decide what neutral can be, right? You shouldn't be changing moves because one character, oh, that's bad versus the character, right? You know what I mean? So it just goes to show, it goes more to my point about this gravitational pull that is becoming stronger in games, this magnetic effect, this heaviness, right? And it also goes to prove what I talk about Super Turbo. Super Turbo. If you just look at Super Turbo as a standalone game, you're like, wow, this game is bonkers. It's dumb. Maybe. I guess that might be objective. You might think that objectively, or that might be subjective. You might subjectively think that, oh, this game is dumb, right? This game is broken. But if you look at it through the lens of the grand ether of what Street Fighter is, Super Turbo is unparalleled. 30 years later, every character gets played. Doesn't matter how many counter characters there are. You see the counter characters steamroll the characters that are supposed to be countering them, right? That's why I say, again, so many people, their arguments don't hold up to any scrutiny. So many people that act like they can talk about Street Fighter, they know nothing. It's terrible. It's just background noise. Anyway, if you like the videos, like, sub, comment, share, support the channel if you can. I appreciate it. Thanks.